reading. Lydia will be reading for Isaiah 53.
Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord has been revealed? He grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray, each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all.
Daniel?
From Mark chapter 5, verse 25 to 34. Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be well." Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that the power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to him, "See the multitude thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he turned around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. So today, only believe.
I like that.
So, we continue the series on the Gospel of Mark. We know that this passage is also written by other Gospel writers. For example, Matthew chapter 9, verses 20 to 22, we see the same history, but it mentions that woman who was diseased with an issue of blood. That's not mentioned here. So Matthew mentioned a little bit more details. Luke and Mark explains about the woman who spends all her monies to get healed. So which Matthew didn't mention again. So here we see the first lesson that we may learn from this is that, of course, like introduction as well, that he or she and we needs Jesus to heal our broken hearts and also for our diseases. We know that last week we talked about the demon possessed. He didn't even know that he needed Jesus, but he desperately needs Jesus to heal him, to tell the people who occupy to go out from him. And we also see in the text Jairus and his daughter who needs Jesus, because he said, "My daughter is dying." So all these people need Jesus, including this woman. So we all need Jesus. Sometimes we do not know that we need, right? Like the demon possessed. It doesn't know. It doesn't know that he needs Jesus, but Jesus come and heal. So Jesus is for everyone. And another good lesson is that, as introductions, is that this man did not put his faith in Jesus. You remember last week? He didn't really put his faith to Jesus. He didn't even talk to Jesus. It's only the devil, whose name is Leon, talk to Jesus, right? But Jesus had compassion on him. So he asked the devils to go out from him. No faith from him. In that case, do we need faith to meet with Jesus? Right? That's a good lesson. But here, with the woman, Jesus didn't even know about her. Of course, Jesus knows everything, everyone's. But the Bible didn't really mention that it's the attention of Jesus to heal her. But this is the faith that brings to Jesus. So, likewise, you and I may not necessarily know Jesus or the need that we need to put our faith in Jesus. But Jesus, again, is for everyone. He has the same compassion and love and concern for every one of us. Mark tells us that a woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with consistent bleeding. With consistent bleeding. Here, more females today. Only 5 male, right? And 6 males. Oh, actually we have the same. 6, 12. No, we are more. Male, you know. But the woman, or you all understand about bleeding. It's not easy. And this woman has been bleeding for 12 years. We'll talk more about these things, the backgrounds. However, we all have issues. We all have problems. The trouble with this man is that, you know, they do not affect us. But everybody we come in contact with. For this woman, a constant bleeding had become a major problem, and it dominated her life. We can place ourselves in the place of this woman because all the problems, all the issues she had are the same issues we have. So let us talk more about this woman. Number 1, she got physical problem. Physical problem. Number 1 is that he had physical issue. Mark says in verse 25 that a woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. And the cause of the bleeding is not stated. Why? For 12 years, she had been slowly bleeding. Her body barely able to keep up with reproducing the blood she was losing. She probably felt weak, tired, right? And mentally, of course, very weak as well. So later we are told that she would feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible problem. This indicates that there was some type of physical discomfort and pain. In other words, because she knows immediately when the period comes for the woman, sometimes you may realize it's going, sometimes not all the time, right? But this woman feel immediately that the bleeding stops. The reason is she feels pains all the time. That's why she knows, she recognizes immediately. When the pain is gone, she knows that the bleeding is also gone. So her problem here, indeed, is physical problem. The second problem she got is financial problem. As I mentioned, that Mark and Luke mentioned that she spends all her money to the doctor, but no cure. Not better, but even worse. So she was suffering 12 years. In other words, she couldn't do anything anymore. The doctor couldn't do anything. She doesn't have any more money to go to a better doctor or to help herself, because she spends everything she had. She had no money left. She had nothing she could sell. She had nothing. Yes, because of this, her life was financially ruined. Maybe she's worried about what to eat, even for clothing, because she needs to change her clothes several times, is it not? In the old days, no diaper. I don't think they have diaper. So bleeding all the times for 12 years, all the times, which will look a little bit longer. How difficult for her. The third thing is she also have problem, relational problem. In other words, who will be with her? It will be smell, right? It will be very difficult. She had a relational issue. Mark says that in verse 25, the woman has suffered from constant bleeding. Constant bleeding means not easy at all. It's not for 3 days, not for 4 days. It's bleeding constantly for 12 years. There was a lot of religious rules during Jesus' day. Jesus came to change all that. But for this woman, and because of her bleeding, she had been declared unclean, according to Leviticus chapter 15. Because when a woman have period, the time she is with a period bleeding, she's declared as unclean. And this woman constantly. So religiously, she's an unclean person. Women had to wait 7 days after any bleeding stopped before they were permitted to offer sacrifices. You see, that's the law of Moses in verses 28 and 29. For over a decade, she was unable to participate in the temple or synagogue worship and not go to worship in the temple. She would have also been very limited in being around people, friends, and family, because she was considered unclean. Socially, she was a little better off than a leper, that's all. Otherwise, she's not much different from lepers. Skin disease, those who are with skin disease, leper. So she will be lonely. I think she will be lonely. She will be stressed, anxiety, and so many mentally problems with her because of the disease she was with. The fourth thing is spiritual issues, spiritual problems. There is a spiritual issue in this, because people of her day view people like her as cursed by God. Again, that's another problem. She would assume she was sick because of some sin in her life, or maybe the sin of her parents. They have these views that people who suffer from illness or misfortune must be guilty of some sin, and God was punishing them. When Job had all his disasters happened, he ran up against disbelief in his friends. In Gospel of John chapter 9, the disciples of Jesus asked Jesus about a blind man. They asked Jesus, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sin? Definitely not his own sins, is it not? because he was born blind. Do you know anyone involved in sinful actions before they were born? Physically? No one. Not existed, right? Of course, we all are sinners through Adam. But apart from that, who can do sins before we are born? So he's physically, mentally, spiritually not very lucky woman. She's in trouble. Sometimes we been punished because of our action, right? We didn't know this. Why this bleeding comes? I know that, if same-sex married people, the doctor said that their health is affected after a few years. Yeah. They all have problems. We do not know this woman married with another girl having problem for bleeding. I don't think that's the one. As Jesus said in the other passage, I believe this is not because of her sin, but rather for the glory of God, that she may get healed. So, as a human being, she's hopeless again, like the one we already discussed last week. She's hopeless. No one loves her. But they may love her, but who will take care of her all the times? No one. It's humans, beyond humans' ability. In fact, she spent all her money. And even the doctors may not like her to see her again, because they try and work hard. Sometimes when you do something, try to help things and not improve, we give up. It's not. You give up. We give up. Just to get her money may not be the result for doctors. They may not want to see her anymore, because they may feel that that's beyond the abilities. But there's something happened here. Number one, Mark tells us that in verse 27, she had heard about Jesus, who saw. She came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body, you see? She could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition. Here, what I want to emphasize is that she hears Jesus is coming. Because there's no other hope. She's still very wise, is it not? She spends everything. And she's hopeless now. But at least when she hears about Jesus, she wants to go with him. She's better than us. For most of us, maybe we don't like our behavior, maybe we don't like what we do, or what we are and who we are as human beings. But we don't even know that we need to go to Jesus. When she hears about Jesus, she wants to go. She didn't expect a lot because, physically, mentally, spiritually, she's like in trouble. Right? So she doesn't dare to tell Jesus. But she thinks, maybe even if I touch her cloth or robe, I'll get healed. Big expectation. But what she tries to do is it's brave but not great things. It's only to touch Jesus' robe, the cloth of Jesus. So, She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. She had already heard about Jesus. Jesus was not new to her. By this time, Jesus had already healed hundreds, right? So she had heard of Jesus. No different from us. Many of us have heard of Jesus many times. We read the scriptures several times. Not new, but we don't normally go for ourselves. We don't take actions like this woman. We hear and gone. We had some good things, some good sermons, some good teachings about the Bible or Jesus, and we let it pass. We never take actions. But this woman, very wise woman. She said, if I touch his cloth, I'll get healed. So in Romans chapter 10, verse 17, we read, faith comes from hearing. That is, hearing the good news about Christ. Faith comes by hearing the word of God. Without hearing, can faith be possible? No. At least something must work in us. At least the Holy Spirit or something. Maybe a dream, visions, reading history, or hearing other sermons, or reading the Bible. At least God used something that we can hear about Jesus. Yes, from hearing to hoping. Hear and hope. Because we go from hearing to hoping, Mark tells us in verse 28, for she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I'll be healed. She didn't know what exactly would happen. But she had hope and faith that if she could get to Jesus and touch his robe, she will be healed. She will be healed. That's what she expected and believed. There's nothing else in this history, only believe. Because he's worthy to believe. Because he's worthy to trust. If we cannot trust Jesus, you don't have any more to trust. If we don't depend on Jesus, you cannot depend on any other persons. You can depend on your children, your fathers, mothers, your brothers, sisters, but not very long. But Jesus can do great things in your life. You know, when I was young, I thought that if I follow Jesus, I need to lose all my joy. I may need to lose everything. I may need to lose everything of human beings. My happiness with friends, you know, as young people or young men. I want to play sports. I want to do so many things with friends. I thought that if I follow Jesus, I need to stop all this. No, that's wrong. I already experienced. You don't need to lose everything. But if you follow Jesus, he will rather guide you to a better step. And your life will even be better. I am not regret that I follow Jesus since my childhood, almost like my childhood, 11 years old. Till today, I still do what I can and what I love. Still play sports, still mix with friends, but in a better way. Not with, drinking in the pubs and nightclubs and all this. No. Along with my friends, we rather sing songs of praises. And I have more joy with that rather than singing in a nightclub, is it not? I never see nightclub in my life. One day I want to see what really happens. People are looking for happiness. They said that the other day, one of the ladies said, "Oh, nightclub is very nice. I'll tell you what is there. You don't need to have this. Everything is there." And I asked her, "If you don't have money, how can you use?" She said, "I don't need money. Others got money." That's what she said. You see? They thought that they'll have joy. At the very last, I asked her, when you finish and go back home after your nightclub activities, do you really have peace in mind? She was thinking and said, "Sometimes, but other times, even worse." She said, "If you don't have friends there, then you are worse off. But come to Jesus. You will get healed. Your joys may even be full. Come with your heart, your mind, and believe with everything, body, soul, and spirit." Jesus expects us to believe Him fully so that He can solve miracles in our life. Like this woman. Just to believe and follow Him. Healing takes place in her body. Then she lost all her sins, is it not? Because she's healed. She's clean now. She's not unclean anymore. She can even jump and dance to the ground. Is it not? So not only that Jesus solved her physical problem, He also solved her mental problems, spiritual problem, relational problems, and every problem she has. Now she's all right. She can do sacrifice in a temple. She can do and work for money because she doesn't have any more physical problems. She can earn more money now. Right? She can have more friends now because she's clean. So if you want to be like this woman, seeing the miracles of Jesus, today I'd like to encourage you, just believe. He's able. Then we may have questions. Then why people die? Then why there's hospital? Because they don't believe Jesus. What about the church people who strongly believe Jesus still get sick? Right? Remember, we live in a world which is already sickness and sorrow and everything. But when we need Jesus, we come to Jesus. And sometimes He resolved our problems immediately. Other times what He said, no, not yet. You are not changed yet. You are not changed yet. You only come here for lunch. You only come here for money. You only come here for healing. I want to change your whole life. So He waits. Sometimes He waits till we die. Because we don't change. Other times, the Apostle Paul said, he prayed to the Lord that he may get healed. He even mentioned thorn in my body. Paul said, thorn in my body. We're not really sure what thorn was that. Some people said Paul has some physical disease. Others has that, no, not physical, mentally. Because he killed, he arrested so many Christians. So mentally, always discouraged. That's why he himself said, I am the smallest among the disciples, he said. We don't really know what Paul mentioned about his thorn in the bodies. I strongly believe that's physical sickness. But God said, my grace is sufficient for you. You see? So Paul said, when I am weak, I am strong to believe in. It's like that. Yeah. Who wants parents should die? No one. Maybe these days the young people may want, so that they may get their parents' money, right? Maybe some prince in the history, princess, kill their own father so that they can be crowned. But not normal life. We all love our parents. Doesn't matter, they may be 1,000 years old, right? We still love. But is that God's will for them to live? Thousands of years? No. We've been created with imperfect body. One day we still need to go. Some people go very young. I buried someone that we've been praying for. You know, on Friday, he's only 31 years old. Young man. But I saw in televisions a woman in Melbourne still drive with 104 years old. So, more importantly, it's short or long, what is important to live well while we are here. Then how can we live well? Only with Jesus. We may think that if I have billions of dollars, my life will be, nice. No. They have more troubles. They have more troubles. That's what the Bible also mentioned about these things. Maybe I don't need to talk all these things. So hearing to touching to healing, so that the glory of Jesus may be seen. Anyone want to add with this woman's history or anything? Ian?
Just
Any
going to
insight?
say that lady was probably a member of the early church. So the gospel writer probably knew her and got a story from her. A lot of these people that the stories are about, I'm sure Luke had met them in the early church.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a story, it was a living person.
Right.
They knew.
We didn't really know about after the healing. We know, that demon possessed, after he was healed or the devil left him, he preached about Christ. Every reasons, but we didn't really know about this woman. But I think what Ian is mentioning is possible, because the apostle said we cannot but to speak what we hear and heard, right? What we heard and know. So this woman will not be silenced. Women are actually more useful. Samaritan woman, remember? Even just to know who Jesus is, she tells everybody. So she should be. Hopefully, hopefully she was a member, if she was still alive. Because at this time, church was not existed yet. She was only a part, of the Jewish community. So, definitely, I believe too, she's a member of the church.